Ladies and gentlemen, wrestling has more than one royal family. I am my kingdom! I am my kingdom!
Welcome to the okayest podcast in all the land. Welcome to the Kingdom of Honor. I am your host, Zanman Shane Sabunya, the expatriate, along with Muddy Jeff.
You know, I have a question.
Yeah.
Considering we're 24 minutes into the start time and we're just getting started, is it really the okayest?
Well, that's why it's not the best.
Well, dude, it's not even close to the okayest. We need to downgrade this. What's lower than okayest?
Jeff?
Fair enough. The Jeffest podcast on the planet? All right, just so everyone is aware, technical difficulties again. Your favorite ADD show that has mastered the art of technical difficulties. This is why we need you to subscribe to our Patreon account. A mere $5 can help us pay for this crap.
Also, let your local radio stations know that they can pay us like $50,000 a year each, and we'd be happy to take some time on their air for them.
Jesus, basis. No. We got to go about 60. If we go 60, then I can do this full time.
Well, yeah, but if we go 50, then you can deliver to Domino's part of the time.
No, they won't hire me. I'm unhireable by Domino's.
Well, I've seen you drive, so I totally understand why.
Fair enough, asshole. Anyway, what do we got today?
Well, folks, as you know, we named our show after NJPW and Ring of Honor, but lately our favorite stuff has been happening on Impact and Major League Wrestling. So
yeah, speak for yourself on the Impact thing. I have issues with Impact right now.
You have issues with everything.
Well, yeah, except NJPW. This G1 has been amazing. Well, night one was. Night two, night one of the A block was great. Night two with the B block, yeah.
Packed lineup.
That A block night, that night one of the A block was phenomenal. And yeah, that's my first one of the night. But I can't say.
Into the show.
Shut up. I can't say anything bad about night one of the A block.
I can.
The worst match I saw on that was 3 stars. Of the 5. I didn't watch any of the tag matches.
Well, one bad thing I can say about it is Bad Luck Fale.
And that was my 3 stars. It had its moments, but I can get to it. I mean, we're going to get to it in a second, unless you want to start with the G1.
We can start with the G1. You already brought it up.
My problem. The only reason it got a 3-star was because Fale won the match. I felt like Evil versus Fale was a great big man story. The fact that the announcers kept playing up that Evil is shopping for a new stable, and Evil constantly coming back, including jumping him before the bell, I thought was just really well done. The fact that he kept coming back showed his toughness, and it also showed his heart, which made Evil look better coming out of the match than he did going. My only real criticism of it was the fact that Fale won the match. I think it would have been better for Evil and his newfound heart and badass self if he had pulled off the win. So that was my strike against it. But otherwise, I thought this was a phenomenal match.
Well, I can't debate that because, like we talked about prior to coming on the air, you're going to try to watch every single G1 match this year, and I'm going to try to not watch most of the Fale matches.
I don't blame you.
The Tai Chi match, any of the Yano matches. So I actually didn't see this match. This is the one match from the night one G1 matches I did not watch.
I thought it was, like I said, I thought it was well done. I mean, Evil probably has my favorite entrance in wrestling right now, and that's hard to say because such a big Marty Scurll fan. But Evil, there's something about his music, the mask, the robe, when he carries that spinning side of the ring, and he didn't in this match, but generally when he carries that, and then just his presence overall, it is one of the best, if not the best, entrance in wrestling today.
He probably didn't really bring in that side through customs.
Yeah, probably. But when you look at that, and then he jumped Fale from the opening bell. He hung Fale, and Fale is a big guy. One of the things I've never really understood about Bad Luck Fale is this is a guy who has the size. He has the attitude that just makes people hate him. He is a great, great monster heel with some decent in-ring work. I'm not going to say great, decent in-ring work. You would think he would be the type of guy that would be pushed to the moon, but he just never seems to put everything together. And because of that, he's stuck in lower mid-card land as a guy who's a joke. And it just doesn't... I've never understood that about him, about how he always seems to be on the cusp, but he never really gets it all together.
I think he was better before he lost so much weight. I still don't know that he's gotten himself to the point where he knows how to use he knows how to use his current body the way that he did before he lost all that weight last year.
Even still, he's still a really good monster. Even, I mean, he's about 45 to 50 pounds lighter than he was. And he still has that intimidating factor. So I think you're right on that. He's the kind of guy that I think, because of how great he is as a heel and how great he is as an imposing big man, one of these days I'd really like to see him put it together and actually get a run. Something that's befitting and something that is worthy of a guy of his magnitude. The problem is I just don't know if he has it in him to put all that stuff together.
And honestly, would you really want him to? I mean, would you really want to see Bad Luck Fale pushed ahead of some of our favorites like Sonata, Evil, ZSJ, Will Ospreay? I mean, I think Fale is right where he belongs and right where he should remain.
I think if he can put everything together, I wouldn't mind seeing it. Just as something different, something you never see anymore. Outside of WWE, when is the monster pushed? Well, I guess I got to take that back because we just had something happen in MLW this week. But outside of WWE and MLW, when is the monster pushed? Even Jeff Cobb was short-lived in Ring of Honor. You don't have that monster heel being pushed anymore. It's one thing that I really, really miss about old school wrestling is just that imposing. Like Braun Strowman was the perfect guy to do it with, and they screwed that up. Besides, it's WWE, so whatever. But when have you seen that? When was the last time you saw that happen?
Like you said, Major League Wrestling.
That doesn't count. We got to block that out because they are great and so far ahead of everybody else right now that they don't count.
Then I'm going to say probably Punishment Martinez as the TB champ.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. Yeah, and if he hadn't left, I think he'd still be being pushed by Ring of Honor as a top-level champ. But, yeah, that could have been the last one. And I just think...
And then you have Tommaso Ciampa in NXT.
Yeah, but Tommaso Ciampa was never that enormous, imposing heel. He didn't tower over everybody. He was definitely lighter than everybody because he's technically a cruiserweight.
His personality towered over everybody.
Yeah, but he wasn't that monster. He was...
You're misusing the phrase monster heel. I mean, Ric Flair was a monster heel.
No, not in the... I guess not in the way that I'm looking at a monster heel. a great heel. Tommaso Ciampa, Flair, those are great heels. But when I talk about a monster heel, I mean somebody who's 6'5", all 350, 400 pounds, that towers and outweighs everybody, and just kind of like a Braun Strowman.
Well, how often have you really seen that on top of a wrestling promotion, though? I mean, I suppose you can point to Big Show in ECW years ago, but really, for the most part,
yeah, but he was a face though too.
Those guys aren't. Was he a face then? Maybe he was. I
believe he was in ECW. He was a face.
But I mean, my point is that those guys typically don't hold the titles very long.
Well, he did. Big Show as the Giant did for quite a while in WCW.
No,
but
he never had a long title reign.
It's 6 months.
No, he was never a champion for 6 months. What the fuck are you talking about? When did he hold the title for 6 months?
He held it from February to August of 1996.
Is that right?
Yeah. I want to say he won it from Hogan in February. I'll have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, in my Monday Night Review, I started halfway through his run. I started in June, or end of May, because of, the period of time that I'm looking at. But I want to say he held the title for 3 to 4 months before that.
Well, if that's right, then he's probably your answer as the last time we saw a super heavyweight dominated world championship. Unless you count Brock Lesnar, of course.
Oh, fuck Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar in 2002, even 2014, I was good with. I can't buy into Brock Lesnar in 2019.
Well, that's fine, but he was still doing the same shit in 2014 as the champion. So if you're going to count him, then he's probably the last one, because he's
unfortunately
6'4" and 300 and some pounds. So.
And unfortunately, he's still doing the same thing in 2019.
Don't know, don't care.
Did you hear about that debacle?
Did he win the championship last night?
Yep.
Funny.
I actually debated watching Extreme Rules last night, and I tapped out of it last minute. I figured, I'll just catch whatever the good matches were tomorrow.
You figured Susan hates you enough as it is?
Well, she was gone by that point. So, at that point, I was tapping.
More ways than one.
At that point, I was tapping out, and I just figured I'd do some more NJPW, but I couldn't bring myself to watch it. It came down to the final minutes, and even though there was a couple of matches that I really, really wanted to see, I figured, I'll just wait until it's been sitting for a couple of weeks and they have the menu there where I can skip to the matches I want to see. And after hearing what happened, I'm really, really, really glad that I didn't watch that.
Okay, so the Giant won the title April 22nd, 1996. He held it for 110 days, which is just under 4 months, which isn't really a long reign.
No, it's not. I for some reason I thought he won it in February.
And then Hogan won it back from him and held it for 359 days.
Yeah, fuck Hogan.
Wow, you want to fuck Hogan and Brock Lesnar tonight? You are really.
Yeah, I'm on top of things. Speaking. Speaking of which, we're looking for all of the people that listen to this and everybody else. We're looking for the top 100 champions of all time. We're not talking championship reigns. We're not talking, who had the best reigns. Because let's face it, John Cena, as much as I hated every single reign that he did after 2005, he is still considered one of the best champions of all time. So, go to Twitter, #Kingdom of Honor. We are looking for the top 100 champions of all time. And by the fans, because this show is hosted by fans. We're clearly not professionals, but we are fans, and we do everything for the fans. So go to Twitter, hashtag Kingdom of Honor. Let us know who you think is the best champion of all time. We're looking to set up a tournament. I haven't decided yet I guess we haven't decided yet if it's going to be a ladder type tournament or if it's going to be a March Madness type tournament to crown the all-time greatest champion of all time by the fans. So, make sure you go to...
What's a ladder tournament?
A ladder tournament is kind of like Dojo Pro. Did you ever watch that?
No.
All right. The worst guy starts at the bottom. They get ranked 1 to 100. And the worst guy starts at the bottom and he works his way up the tournament or up the ladder, getting defeated by whoever along the way. And then if he loses, let's say Rob Van Dam is number 101. He goes up against Taz, who's number 100. If he beats Taz, then he moves up to 99. If Taz wins, then Taz moves up to 99. And they keep going until they reach the top.
Oh, that's just stupid. No, we're not going to do that.
Oh, all right. I guess Shane said we're not going to do that, so it's going to be a March Madness type thing.
Hey, look at this. John Bradshaw Layfield and John Cena had back-to-back 280-day reigns as champion.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize Cena held it that long his first time.
Yeah, he held it from April 3rd, 2005 until Edge beat him at New Year's Revolution.
God, Edge was a good champion, too. Good.
I'm just looking to see if there was any monsters that have held the title for longer than Big Show, other than, Lesnar. And I'm not finding any so far.
No, there isn't. I can guarantee there isn't. Because if you look at it was about 2002 or 3 when Mysterio won it. And after then, they kind of went for smaller guys. Even John Cena, when you think of how big he is, was technically considered a smaller guy because I don't think he ever came close to 300 pounds, did he?
No.
I think he stuck around 240, 250. And Hogan might have been the last one before the Giant because Hogan, before he went to WCW, was like 315 pounds.
Yeah, but he wasn't that high in WCW.
No, but I'm talking about when he was at WWF. After Savage won it, it started to be guys under 300 pounds from that point going forward.
Do you know who the longest reigning WWE champion is since CM Punk?
AJ Styles.
It is AJ Styles.
Yep, he held it almost a year.
He held it through 371 days.
Yep. Oh, so just over a year.
Just over. Yeah, I thought it was just under a year too, but yeah, it was just over a year.
Oh, that's good.
1 day shy of a year and a week. So.
Nice. So back to G1. Now that we've got
my other issue with it was that now that you and I have seen like every match they've ever had against each other, they've wrestled each other like 12 or 13 times. I just could not watch Okada versus Tanahashi anymore.
I
was sitting there watching it, going, "Oh, this is so boring." I mean, it's like I hate comparing the two because I don't think. I think Okada's way better than Orton, and I think Tanahashi's way better than Cena. But it's like if I had to watch Orton versus Cena again. I just can't do it.
I'm not gonna lie, it's gotten to that point for me too. I still gave this match 4.5 stars because they hit every note. They told a good story. Okada played to the audience in the beginning. I loved Okada's that moment in the beginning where Okada mocked one of the things that you and I have voiced that we hate is that like Pentagon does it and everyone else does it where they shush the crowd and then go for the big hand slap or the chop in the corner. I thought that was a brilliant idea by Okada to shush the crowd and then just to pat Tanahashi on the chest. To me, that kind of stood out. There were a couple of other things that really stood out with Okada delivering some rainmakers and holding the audience. And I thought the match was what we expected with these guys. it was a 4.5-star match from my point, but you're right, it was boring. It's like, how many times can we see these two put on the same match over or not the same match, because they do mix it up, but we've seen them now, what, 15, 16 times?
Yeah, I was saying 12 or 13, but it could easily be more than that.
Well, they had 12 times for the championship alone, and then they've met in G1s here and there since then.
Okay, yeah, so it probably is 15 or 16.
We've got to be pushing 16 times. We've seen these guys, and it's a similar match every time. It's a different winner almost every time, and they do mix in some things to keep it fresh. But all in all, we've seen this over and over again. And you're right, it's to a point where it's John Cena, Randy Orton-esque.
See, and I was sitting there watching it, I could appreciate the technical structure of the match and what they were putting together, but to give it 4.5 stars, I'd have to have some kind of emotional investment. And when my emotional investment is, I don't want to watch this anymore, 4.5 is probably way higher than I could ever give a match.
I think it.
Yeah, 3.5, 4 probably, but I could never give a match more than 4 stars if I had no emotional investment in it.
I think what pushed it over the edge for me, and I agree with that, it's hard for me to go over 4 stars. I mean, they were technically sound. They told a great story. Everything they did, they mixed in some fresh stuff along with the old favorites. They had a good take on something that we've seen 16 times. So to me, just on match value alone, this was 4 stars. The part that pushed it over the edge for me was the Dallas crowd. The fact that they were so into this, and it felt like a history-making moment. And I think that's what pushed it over the 4-star mark for me, was the fact that the crowd was into it. They were into everything. A lot of it felt like this crowd was watching this for the first time, and that gave it a little bit extra.
I hardly ever, I should say, take into account the way the crowd reacts to a match when I'm reading anything, and I think you know that.
It depends. It depends on the situation.
And really, I kind of find myself thinking, kind of being of two minds about them being more accepting of this match because it was the first time ever in the United States. And the reason I say that is because if they were going to do that, then why bother hot-shotting Jay White's first championship reign instead of having Tanahashi defend the title against Okada at Supercard?
I think, and I kind of saw this in this match, and it made me really think back to that match that we were so angry about. But I really saw in Okada and the way that the fans reacted to him, why it is that they needed to have the belt on Okada at the 2 U.S. shows. Why he needed to win it. And I still, to this day, and from a wrestling fan's point of view, and from a storyline point of view, I hate the fact that Okada beat Jay White. But now, after seeing the way that the fans reacted to him, I kind of get it a little bit more, because he is the guy. He's one of the top 3 in the world, and still to this point, he's still one of the top 3 or 4 in the world. And when you see the performance that he can pull out, even against a guy that you've seen 15, 16, 17, whatever times, you can see why he's the man to carry the torch when it comes to opening the doors in the U.S. As much as we like Jay White.
I never had a problem with Okada winning the championship back at G1 Supercard. My problem was cutting the weights out from under White, and I didn't understand what the point was of having White win the title from Tanahashi and then just only to drop it to Okada. That was always my problem with it.
It was to get, when you look back in hindsight, it was to get it off of the face to give it to the face. Because New Japan is not about the heel versus heel, face versus face. They rarely ever have those matches.
They've had plenty of Okada versus Tanahashi matches when both guys were faces.
Yeah, but and even Omega versus Tanahashi was face versus face. So I guess there goes my theory. That was my reasoning and the way that I looked at it. But when you watch, even if you don't like what they did, even if you don't want to see Okada versus Tanahashi again, and by all means, I don't want to see it anymore either, because and this is, you said that you don't want to draw the comparison to Cena versus Orton. Where that comparison stops is the fact that we see it time and time again. Because Tanahashi and Okada, every time they go out the gate, it's 3.5 to 4 stars. Just plain and simple. That's just what you're going to get. You're going to get that greatness. And we never got that with Orton and Cena. Orton and Cena sprinkled in a couple of 4-star matches here and there, but they also put some clunkers on the board too. Where Okada and Tanahashi, every single time they go out, you can just pencil in 3.5 stars and go from there.
Yeah, that's true. I would much rather that they go 3 or 4 years before having another match against each other, so that we have our appetite whetted for it and we can kind of see, And to that point, we're looking at where Tanahashi's really on the last legs of his career, and can he summon something for one last shot against Okada? The story they tried to tell last year, and last year's match at what was it, Dominion? It wasn't Dominion. It was
at G1. It was at the Supercard. No, it was the finals of Supercard.
No.
When they put on that 30-minute draw?
No, they had a title match, which was the match for Okada to break Tanahashi's record.
Oh yeah, okay, yep, you're right. I think that was Dentaku.
And that was a fantastic match.
Yeah, it was, and these two guys are the type of guys that every time they go out, you just know it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be great. It's going to be 3.5 and up. It's just like you said. It's at a point, and I did it too. When I first started watching this match, I actually rewound it because I got to maybe about the quarter mark through, and the whole time I was going, God, this sucks. Why are we watching these guys again? We've seen this 100 times. And I got to maybe quarter mark. There was a point where Tanahashi went for a high fly flow, and it was blocked. And both Okada and Tanahashi were kind of reeling. And I don't know if that was halfway through. It might have been just before that. But at that point, I looked at that and went, okay, I haven't seen that since their match at Wrestle Kingdom 8. So I went, maybe I need to rewatch this. And I actually rewound it to the beginning and rewatched it. And I tried to block out the fact that we've seen this time and time again. I tried to block out everything and just watch what they were doing in the ring. And by the time I got back to that point, I started to realize how into it the crowd was and how into it looked like Okada and Tanahashi were. These are two guys that I can't remember the last time Tanahashi was healthy going into a match, and it just seemed like they really gave it everything they could. It was fun to watch. It was a good main event of an opening night of the A block. And maybe 4.5 stars might have been a little too high, but in my mind it was just a really good match that deserved that because of the crowd's involvement.
All right, so let me tell you who to me have had are the two guys that have had the best matches. Well, let's say 3 guys who have had the best matches in G1 so far this year. Number 1 is Sonata. Number 2 is Kenta. And number 3 is Ospreay.
Okay, if you don't say ZSJ, I've got to... I think... And we might as well get into that match. That was a 5-star match for me. Sonata versus ZSJ.
Oh, absolutely.
In fact, that match may have jumped its way into my top 5. I felt like you had Sonata, who is just great in every aspect of the game, going against Zack Sabre Jr., who is also great in every aspect of the game. The only edge I give Sonata is Sonata tends to go to the high impact, high flying moves a little bit more than ZSJ, because I don't think ZSJ has ever done it. But just the back and forth the technical wrestling, and dude, cut in whenever you think about something, because I kind of feel like I'm filibustering here. But Zia,
well, the thing is that last year, and Zack Sabre Jr. and Sonata didn't have the best match of G1, but they had my favorite match of the G1. And this year, again, they've had my favorite match of the G1.
they've had the best match so far. I've only seen.
Yeah, they really have. But
Granted, I've only seen through the
favorite.
first. Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is right up there with Cody versus Dustin, and in my eyes, Gargano versus Cole, that from Takeover 25, and Dunn versus Coffey from the NXT mat, or the NXT. I think this is right in that discussion.
You forgot Sammy versus Tessa from this past.
I'm trying not to talk about that until later. I'm talking about right now.
Okay.
God, that was a good match, though. I honestly can't wait to talk about that, because that was amazing. But this match here, it had everything. Is there a better? And I know I'm going to kick myself in the face for this, because we've got MJF, and we've got Jay White, and we've got Matt Taven. But how is ZSJ not talked about as one of the best heels in the business?
Probably because he's barely ever on the mic.
Even he doesn't need to be to show what he is. That moment where he went out of the ring and he milked that 20 count. And Sonata opened the ropes for him and invited him back in, and he shrugged it off. And then he had that back and forth with the fan where he kept, faking that he was about to jump in the ring, and then got in the ring and flipped the guy off. That was such an amazing heel moment. Just that 20 seconds was so great as a heel that it ranks up there with one of my top heel moments of all time.
Yeah, he's great. But the reason he's not in my top 3 so far this year in the G1 is because his match against Okada, to me, wasn't that great.
I haven't seen it yet, so.
And it was only a 12-minute match.
Yeah, give me some time. Maybe after I see that, I'll take it back a little. But this match alone was 5 stars. There was no question about it. If I take this match on an island, this was a great, great match and one of my top 5 of the year.
Yeah, I can certainly see where you'd be in that spot, and it's just another example of why Sonata isn't pushed the way that he should fucking be pushed.
To be honest, for him, and it was that first 2 or 3 minutes when they had the back and forth, and they kind of took that little take on the standoff that most cruiserweights do when they're matching move for move. Mm-hmm. And Sonata and ZSJ did it with counter after counter after counter. I was watching that going, this is fucking amazing. And then seeing them continue that for another 15 minutes, the way that ZSJ countered every single Paradise Lock that Sonata tried, the way that Sonata countered every submission move that ZSJ tried, it was one of the best moves I've ever seen, and it's hard or best matches I've ever seen, and it's hard for me to say otherwise.
And just think about the fact that Sonata's second match in the tournament was against Will Ospreay.
Oh, I hate you. You and I have been on the Sonata bandwagon for about 3 years now.
Yeah.
I remember we first got on his bandwagon a couple of years ago, and it was just because of his athleticism. The fact that he was, he's got to be 6'2", 260 pounds.
And he flies like LeBron James does.
Right. I mean, he's not. I hate that. That's one thing that I hate is when you see these big guys do these, moves, moonsaults, standing moonsaults, and like Willie Mack does, and Keith Lee does in NXT, and you see this stuff, and they're like, oh, he moves like a cruiserweight. No, Sonata moves like a cruiserweight. Sonata is a freak athlete.
And hopefully the way that he's changed his look and his hairstyle and gotten better with stuff means that at some point he'll actually get a serious run at a singles role in NJPW.
I really hope he does, because he's one of those guys that really deserves it.
I totally agree.
He is. I mean, we're 3 to 4 years of him putting in his dues and coming up short. That I think it's now time to push him over the edge.
And just when you and I thought we would never get to see another match like Shibata versus Ishii, along
Right.
come Kenta and Ibushi.
I mean, the only thing that I saw about this that kind of took that Shibata Ibushi, but the whole time I was thinking the same thing. Oh my God, this is the best match I've seen since Shibata Ibushi. For me, and you're gonna dispute this, but for me, this was only 3.5 stars.
Okay.
And let me tell you why. The reason why is because 90% of this match was dominated by Kenta.
And because of that, I agree with you.
And the other thing that really knocked it down for me, and probably the thing that knocked it down the most, was that horrible looking GTS at the end of the match, where Kenta goes to deliver it, and the way that Ibushi landed, it hit him more in the mid-chest underneath his arms than the face like everybody tried to sell it as. I think that alone, the fact that, and I get, believe me, I get why Ibushi is protecting his head. But that, to me, made the or dropped it down a good half grade.
You need to filibuster for a minute. My dog is barking and it won't come in.
Oh, okay. So I mean, other than that, this match was phenomenal. I mean, Kenta looked like the guy that we wanted in NXT. He looked like he was vicious. He was aggressive. He seemed to be in control of most of the match, and he would mix good moves and good technical wrestling with hard hits. When I looked back at his run in NXT, this was the Kenta that I always wanted to see, and it's nice that 15 years after he left NJPW to come back and put on this kind of show, I thought was really well done by Kenta. Really well done.
Yeah, and we talked about Shibata and Ishii, and and it's kind of similar to Shibata, how nobody knew how he'd be welcomed back to NJPW after he left for Noah to become an ace there, and then he went from Noah to NXT and WWE. But here he comes back, and his very first thing is entering the G1, and he beats one of the Golden Boys there.
And I mentioned this while you were out getting your dog there, but this Kenta that we saw here was the Kenta I always wanted to see in NXT.
And he was always held back. We were never allowed to see it.
He was crisp. He mixed really good technical wrestling with hard hits. This was the Kenta that I've always wanted to see in NXT, that we haven't seen since he left Noah. I just felt like this was kind of a coming out party for him. My only drawback was the fact that, like the Fale versus Evil, like the Ospreay versus Archer match, it was really too one-sided. And when you've got a golden boy like Kota Ibushi to be that one-sided, kind of hurts the overall product.
Yeah, this was gives no fucks Kenta, and
Yep.
and
Really
really,
was.
I totally understand why they went that way, because I think they needed to establish how Kenta as being a strong force going forward. But yeah, I mean, I get, but it definitely brings down the match rating a bit, seeing Ibushi, who has been on a roll up to Dominion, kind of get his ass handed to him.
Well, and that was a lot like the Ospreay Archer match. Ospreay was on a roll. Like, he was, 5-star match after 5-star match after 5-star match, and he even put on a 4.5-star match here with Archer, but he got his ass kicked. He got a lot of offense in, but mostly this was a coming out party for Archer. This is the kind of match where I look at Archer and go, this guy's going to go a long way in this tournament because it looks like they're building him up for future.
Yeah, I mean, there was guys coming in that I think people looked at, like, why do they belong in the G1? You know, I think Shingo's one of them. I think Archer's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kenta's one of them.
And of course, Yano.
Is one of them.
And Toru Yano, but he's always seems to be in.
Yeah, I mean, you know why, Jeff?
Because he's
stickers too, Danny.
Because he's a comedic relief, and that's really all he's good for.
And they need somebody to take the L.
Yeah, except against his. I don't want to go any further because I'm annoyed. I just watched that match.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And then what was the other? Did we talk about all the matches from night one now?
Yeah, the last one's Archer versus Ospreay.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
And well, yeah, we did. And it just, I want to say it again. Ospreay is one of the weird times when you watch an Ospreay match lately and you see him as the underdog. Has there been anybody hotter than Will Ospreay this year? You and I have talked about it multiple times about how he's our wrestler of the year. And to be honest, even in a losing effort when he got his ass kicked, he still was he put on the kind of performance that actually elevates him in my wrestler of the year category. He went out there and he got his ass kicked. He sold like a bitch. He got in his moves and his looked like he was going to overcome this guy who is almost twice his size. And then it was a shock, but at the same time, I think that it really put Archer over and put him in a position to where he's going to run with this. And it made Ospreay look good in defeat because he was able to stand toe-to-toe with a guy that was easily his better in size and so on.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And just quickly on night two, I know you want to talk about Jay White, but Shingo versus Juice. Not sure what you thought of that. It was a 3-star match. I like what I'm seeing out of Juice with his aggressive side. I'm blown away that guy could grow a beard that quickly because he just shaved his dreadlocks off 2 months ago? And he's already got a beard better than mine. It annoys me a lot. But, that was a good 3-star match. Shingo looked strong. Juice looked better and gets the win. Taichi versus Moxley, I was very disappointed in. Very disappointed. I thought...
How can you be disappointed in a Taichi match? You know what you're going to get. You know it's going to suck.
Yeah, but the fact that Moxley came out and was the Moxley that I don't want to see. I don't want to see him being the guy... he's too talented. He's a good brawler, yes, I get that. He's great at storytelling. He's very technically sound. And to see him go out and have street fights every match kind of gets to me a little bit. And Taichi was decent. Moxley picking up the win was kind of what I wanted, but this was a 2-star match easily simply because I'm sick and tired of every match dissolving into a street fight. I just want to see...
I'm sick and tired of Taichi existing.
Well, fair enough. And Naito versus Yano, I'm sure you didn't see it, but this was a 5-star match for entertainment, 1.5 stars for actual wrestling, for the match itself. Naito went in there and basically mocked Yano the entire match and ended up paying for it because Yano outdid him. It was, I mean, it was fun. It was funny. It was, I laughed a couple times. There was some fun stuff that happened, but all in all, this match never should have even been on TV. It's terrible.
I'm not surprised.
The only other match I saw in that was Jay White and Goto. I haven't seen the other one yet. So I'm going to let you talk about Jay White and Goto because I seem to be talking a lot.
Jay White was amazing in that match. Usually we've talked about how matches, the outcomes of matches can ruin, or not ruin, but can taint the rating for them. I don't think that's true in the G1. I think when you're watching these G1 matches, you have your favorites that you want to win, but because of the way the tournament is structured, you can't really sit there going, no, this is a stupid result. This guy should have won that match. I mean, maybe when it gets later in the tournament and the guys that you think should be winning the tournament or in the finals are falling, that's different. But here in the very first opening rounds here, I thought not Naito, but Goto getting the victory here was pretty cool. And I thought White showing his evil heel side was great. I thought that, and we've seen Uno do this before, so this wasn't a surprise. But White goes for the cover, and he's doing like the whole Chris Jericho type pose where he's got the foot across, and he's posing, and Naito and Red Shoes won't count. And then Naito was, or not Naito, but Goto, I call him Naito again, but Goto was still knocked out. And so Red Shoes goes to check on him, and White says, "No, you didn't want to count. You didn't want to count him. So why are you going to go check on him now?" And he shoves Red Shoes aside, and after that, White just completely gets his ass kicked by Goto. Rocky said that maybe Goto was just playing possum. That doesn't even tell the story of the match. The story of the match was that Goto was beat, and White's arrogance cost him the match, which is brilliant work by both White and Goto. It's a brilliant story to tell when you're up against a monster heel like White is, and it's just more hubris for the man who thinks that he's got NJPW wrapped around his finger when really at this point he clearly doesn't. He lost the title to Okada. He did beat Tanahashi after that, but he's still kind of in the spot where he's an arrogant prick who has nothing to show for it at this exact moment. And for him to get his comeuppance a bit here, I think is going to be better for the story going forward.
I agree. I can't disagree with anything you said. There were some really fun moments with him disrespecting Goto. One thing you forgot to mention is when he was lying on the match and Jay White went for that lackadaisical cover and Red Shoes is like, no, you do a body-to-body press or I'm not counting. And Jay White gets down on the mat and he starts making smiley faces with Goto's face.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was such great heel work. And, and if you look at the fact that right from the start, he walked into the ring and he refused to get in the ring to begin with. And he kept saying, this shit is on my time. It's on my time. And then he finally gets into the ring and he plays to the crowd. He plays to, he sets Goto up in a ringside chair, and he plays to the crowd talking about how Goto is not in his league and how, this is what you expect when you're facing him and so on. And then to get beaten the way that he got beaten. Because it was just all out of nowhere. It was like the last 2 or 3 minutes of the match, Goto really got on fire and just kicked Jay White's ass. And it was one of those moments where you look at White and you realize that he is one of And we talked a little bit about this today, but he's one of the top heels in the business. He might be one of the best characters in the business. And I still, after seeing this match, I still think, and I think it's even better after seeing both night 1 and night 2, I still think White is my favorite to win the tournament. After seeing the way that he the way that he worked the crowd, worked the match, sold the way he did, I truly believe this is White's tournament to lose.
I don't want to go rehash that again because we already had that debate last week.
Oh, I know we did. I think
that we both saw things that can enforce our own opinions on it. I'm not going to believe they're going to go with White until they go with White.
Yeah, and for me, and I'll probably be wrong. I mean, it's not uncommon for me to be wrong, but I just felt like this to me, solidified the fact that even if he doesn't win it, he's the best man to have it or to win it.
I'm still not sure that he's ready to main event a Tokyo Dome, but I think he's certainly putting himself in that conversation. Which is something I probably would not have said last week.
Well, fair enough.
All right, so we talked about G1. And I didn't know for sure we were going to talk about Fight for the Fall until I talked to you this morning because you said you had gotten a chance to watch it.
Right.
What was your overall impression of Fight for the Fall?
Well, before we get to that, we've talked a lot about the way that how we named the show after New Japan and Ring of Honor, and Ring of Honor has kind of fallen off a little bit. I mean, they've got still some great stuff going. I think Matt Taven and the whole Villain Enterprises things are both fun to watch, and I love what they're doing with Kenny King.
And they just brought Alex Shelley back to challenge for the championship.
Yeah, I saw that. So they've got some good things going, but they're still not on the radar that they were. A year ago when we started this. And it could be the fact that we've found other promotions that are just like killing everybody, like MLW.
Or they can't keep their talent.
But NJPW with their with their G1, especially that A block, really sucked me back in. Like I can't wait to watch more of this G1 Climax. I just can't after night 1. And then even night 2 had some with Jay White's performance and a couple of other things that came up. I just feel like right now they are hitting on all cylinders.
Well, and considering the fact that I watched tonight's MLW already before our show started, I actually can watch some more G1 tonight. So.
You son of a bitch. I'm supposed to be the one who's all caught up.
Don't worry, I won't spoil for you who won the tag team title match.
Oh, fuck off.
Or the amazing stuff that Mance Warner
Shut
did in
up.
this episode.
Shut up. Shut up.
Because Mance Warner was awesome.
And normally I don't care about spoilers, but I'm so invested in what they're doing there. And I love what MLW it has been that I don't want to know anything until I watch it. I want that surprise.
Yeah, I'm just basically telling you, what you told me a couple of weeks ago about Low Key. I'm telling you that Mance Warner was awesome in this episode.
All right, fair enough. Well, as long as we're talking about MLW, we might as well talk about Kings of Colosseum.
And as I predicted last week, the Samoan Bulldozer... No, it's not Bulldozer. What the fuck is it?
Wolverine.
No, Werewolf.
No, Werewolf, yeah.
The Samoan Werewolf, Jacob Fatu, is your brand new MLW World's Heavyweight Champion.
I still was shocked to see that.
And just like we talked about Kenta versus Tanahashi being a dominant performance by Kenta, this was a complete domination by Fatu.
Which kind of leads me to what I've been saying for the last couple months. Tom Lawler really fell off from what he was before he won the title. when he won the title, he kind of took on a whole new persona. And this last show, not counting tonight, Kings of Colosseum, and the couple of weeks leading up to it, is the first time I've seen Tom Lawler be Tom Lawler since he won the title. So I was starting to get invested back in his character again, and then to have this happen, while I think it's great for storyline, I am a little disappointed because I really wanted to see Tom Lawler become Tom Lawler with a championship.
Well, he may become the first ever, two-time NJPW World Champion, at least since Fusion's been going. You never know. He might get that title back, or the way he was kind of dominated in that match. I kind of wondered if he was no longer with the promotion or something. I have no idea what's going on with that.
It did look like a Barry match, didn't it?
It did.
Like, we're going to put this guy over big time because I'm on my way out the door.
Yeah. Like you think Cody did at Final Battle.
Right. Exactly like Cody did at Final Battle. And while I was watching it, I actually thought that a couple of times. That this just, it looks like he's got 1 foot out the door. Whether that's true or not, I guess we'll find out. I thought he had signed an exclusive deal with MLW. But, I could be wrong. And he could be on his way out the door. But, give it to Jacob Fatu, and this storyline continues. I loved Rich Bocchini and the way that he sold the fact that they're still not under contract. And now you've got a champion who's not even under contract. It's a storyline that I'm really looking forward to seeing play out.
Yeah, and they actually were not. And they actually were not on the show this week for the first time that I can remember since they debuted.
Well, they've been the last couple of weeks, even though they weren't. Well, no, because they were on last week because he faced Joseph. What's the guy's last name?
Samael.
He faced Joseph Samael in the main event, and Von Erichs took out Fatu and Gotch in the back.
Right. This is the first time that we haven't even seen like before we would see the even the Contra logo pop up from here and there. We didn't even get that on this week's episode.
Yeah, it wasn't until the final match that we even saw that they were in the stadium.
No, you're misunderstanding me. I'm saying that tonight's episode that you haven't seen yet, they didn't have a presence on the show.
I hate you for breaking that to me now, you son of a bitch. Asshole.
Well, I just don't want you to be disappointed while you're watching it.
That's the one thing I was looking forward to.
But speaking of the Contra symbol and stuff, did you get the symbolism in the show?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because how did the show open?
Man, I watched it a week ago. I can barely remember what I ate for breakfast.
Then you didn't get the symbolism I'm talking about. So the show opened with the Star Spangled Hammerstone Challenge.
Right.
Where Hammer was defending the national championship against Kota. What's his name? Kota Brazil.
Yeah.
And so he comes out there waving the Star Spangled Banner, waving the flag out there. And how did the show end? Not with the United States flag, but with the Contra flag waving over everything.
Okay, I didn't pick up on that. Maybe it's because I watched the beginning of the show a week ago and just watched the ending today.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's been a rough week, dude.
I'm surprised you could wait that long to watch it, though.
It was tough, but I really wanted to make sure that I could devote time to actually watch it. Like the first match I really wanted to watch because I'm really becoming a fan of Alex Hammerstone. Like he is becoming one of my top wrestlers on the planet that I need to watch every time he's on TV. And even though he was against Kota Brazil, I still wanted to watch him. The middle match, I really like Marlon Reed, but I had no interest in Ray Horus or Orus or whatever the hell you say his name is. But I watched those two matches a week ago, and I just haven't found time with everything else going on and the other things I needed to watch to really devote my time to watching the title match. So today I finally got time to sit down and actually enjoy that title match. So I totally missed that symbolism because of that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's fair enough. So, but I mean, basically that's where we're at. Is that the Hammerstone is the national champion. Now we've got the other major champion is Jacob Fatu. And so we've got heels dominating the top two singles titles in the company, which is pretty cool. We don't know who's going to be chasing those championships yet necessarily, and we don't know, when we're going to get Teddy versus Austin Aries, which they teased last week too.
That's at their pay-per-view in November.
Has already been announced.
Yeah. They announced it on the one that I watched last week. They played a promo where they were hyping up the fact that they're actually going to have a pay-per-view, and one of the advertised matches was Teddy Hart versus Austin Aries.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, I saw that they were hyping it up, and I saw that they, were talking about having the pay-per-view and having 4 titles on the line, but I didn't see that they had actually announced a match for it.
Well, that's kind of what I got out of it, because they started talking about the title matches and how they were all going to be defended, and then before they even got to that, they showed Austin Aries and MJF. I kind of put 2 and 2 together there.
Oh, okay. So you're assuming that that's what's going to happen.
It's got to be. I mean, if you're going to go for this is your first ever pay-per-view, your longtime champion just lost. You have no real contender in sight. I don't know what happened this week, but I would have thought that I did see that Dynasty and Hart Foundation are going for the tag team belts again in a ladder match. I would have thought they would have held off on that until the pay-per-view. But it makes sense now that Teddy Hart and Austin Aries are going to be the held off until then. Simply because that's really the only storyline that's being built right now.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
So yes, I'm assuming right.
Well, I hope so. I'm. You and I think that at least as far as I'm concerned, that I think I can speak for you on this, that we think that MLW has done things the right way so far. They built themselves up. They're at the point where they're ready to do a pay-per-view, and they're doing a $20 pay-per-view, so it's actually affordable for people.
And not only are they building themselves up right, they're doing it while losing talent hand over fist. When you look at when we first started watching them, and they're 66 episodes in now. So your weekly episodes were just over a year that we've been watching MLW, and since their relaunch, and they've got a completely different roster than they had when we first started watching. They haven't really had a whole lot of tag teams. The Dirty Blondes haven't been on for months. You had other guys that. You had other guys that have come and gone. I mean, Jack Swagger was a big-time player there for quite a while, and he has been gone. Or not Jack Swagger, Jake Hagar. You also had your guy, Mike Knox. Was it Mike Knox? He was with the Dirty Blondes for a while. Mike Knox used to be with the ECW.
I can't think of his name right now. I know who you're talking about, though.
The one that was in the 70th anniversary, the openly gay guy. Yeah. He hasn't been on there for over a year. You've had pretty much the roster built around Hart Foundation and Dynasty. You've got so many people that have disappeared in Lucha Brothers and Dago and so on. The list just keeps going on and on and on. But they continue, for some reason, they have an ability, and I don't know who's booking it. And whoever is booking it needs a gold star, because they're doing a fantastic job with booking that promotion. They're able to fit people in and create storylines over what they've got. And even Rich Swann is gone now, and Marlon Reed has taken up the banner of that storyline and recruited another guy into it. Oliver? What the hell's his name? I want to say Joseph.
I don't think it's Joseph. But,
I mean, they've done just a fantastic job at booking that promotion, and they continue to do so.
and they've got some young talent there. Neither one of us is a huge fan of Ray Horus, but he's there. There's Airwolf.
Airwolf.
Dominguez.
Airwolf is a guy I really like. I really like Marlon Reed. I think he's a really talented guy. And of course, Hammerstone, who we both think is a guy who really is beyond that promotion.
And then you have, also in Dynasty, you have Richard Holiday, who's basically like a EC3 clone.
Yeah, he really is. And then of course MJF, who is one of the top talkers in the business right now.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just wondering how long he's going to be with the promotion.
I'm actually surprised he still is. To be honest, I'm really shocked.
Well, MLW has said they're going to let their talents, keep going on with their indie stuff as long as it doesn't interfere with their schedule with them. So I'm not necessarily surprised by it. I just don't know how thin he can really spread himself, especially once their TV starts.
Right. Yeah, that does make sense. And I don't know. I hope that he stays there because he is one of the focal points of that show and does make for a great show.
Oh, absolutely.
But on to AEW.
Oh yeah.
One that you didn't think we were going to talk about.
I didn't, because I wasn't sure if you'd get a chance to watch it or not. You had
so much
this weekend. So.
It caused issues, but I did get it in. And I'll say this.
So what are your overall thoughts of the show?
I thought it was great. I liked the matchups that we saw. I really liked that three-way tag match with Dark Order, Angelico Evans, and Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, or a boy and his dinosaur. Yep. I thought Omega Chima actually rivaled that for match of the night. Those were my two favorite matches of the entire night. Another match I really liked was the 6-man tag match that we talked about last week with MJF, Aaron Spears versus Alan Hack and Janela. And the women's match, tag team match on the show, and also I was really impressed with Sonny Kiss. He's another guy that, even though he had a 5-minute match, he was very impressive in his debut.
Seriously?
I really liked him. I liked his character.
His character is great, but I think that he's
definitely green.
He's super green. He's I think maybe you don't. But my big criticism over the years, and I did say this on Aftershock the other day too. But my big criticism over the years with Jeff Jarrett has been that everything he did looked so choreographed, and I felt like everything Sonny Kiss did looked super choreographed. He's not ready for the spot he's in right now.
Yeah, and I can't disagree with that. I think, but he's a perfect pre-show guy.
Right, and if he stays on the pre-show, and if Britt stays on the pre-show, then I'll be very happy.
Yeah, I'll agree with too.
I think because Britt Baker is super overrated and is nowhere near the talent level that she should be to have the kind of hype that she has going behind her. Speaking of Britt Baker, did you? I'm not sure if you listened to.
And so did B. Priestley.
What about Brie Priestley?
Riho and B. Priestley really impressed me during that match.
Oh yeah, they were great.
And if you look at Riho.
Did you hear Nia? What? Not Nia Jax. What the fuck's her name? Nyla Rose tweeted about Britt Baker during the match.
No.
Do you remember the spot where Britt Baker went to tag the wrong person?
Oh yeah.
She said, "You should have gone to optometry school, dumbass."
That's hilarious. That's great. The one thing about Riho is, and I did go back and watch those women's matches from Fighter Fest. So one thing about Riho is she has now been in 3 AEW shows. And she has been in arguably the match of the night in all 3 shows.
What?
That women's match from Fighter Fest, I went back when I went to that, honest to God, did not have any expectations for it at all.
Right.
That was a fucking amazing match. That really was. Riho above everyone just impressed me. And then when you go back to Double or Nothing, that 6-man match or 6-woman match was also just a great match. She's crisp. She's really, really talented. And to be honest, I'm going to go with a champion to start the women's division. She would be my pick right now.
I can't agree with that. I do, I think that I forgot that how much you liked the women's match from Double or Nothing because I didn't think it was anything that special.
Oh, I really like that one.
But I mean, I don't see how you can say it's a challenge for match of the night when you also had the Bucks versus the Lucha Bros and you had Cody versus Dustin. I mean, those were clearly the best 2 matches of the night.
Oh, they were. That's why I said arguably. There could be now for me and you. Yes, those 2 matches were match of the night, but I would entertain an argument for that women's match too. If there were people that enjoyed that more than the other 2. I don't think it held a candle to Cody and Dusty, but I have seen people argue the fact that it was the match of the night, and I agree with their arguments. I personally don't think so, and that's why I said arguably the matches of the night.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, the tag team match on this one definitely was excellent. I really enjoyed it.
And the fact that was the pre-show.
And really, to me, there, probably. I mean, I guess I'd have to think. I guess I'd have to sit down and really think about it. But off the top of my head, those probably were my 2 favorite matches on this card were tag team matches.
Yeah, 3-way.
The women's tag and the
3-way tag match.
3-way tag match.
Yep. I also
my
really
only problem
like
with the 3-way tag match is I felt like that move where Luchasaurus did the DVD into the powerbomb by Jungle Boy should have been the end of the match.
Yeah, I agree. I also had issue with Marco Stunt being involved.
Yeah.
But I'm not a Marco Stunt fan. So, I've seen him on MLW and I'm not a real fan of his. I don't really that much. I thought Omega Chima was a good 4-star match. And I really liked the Bucks versus the Brotherhood. I thought that was a good 4-star match as well. But to me, I have to say that the 2 best matches were those 2 tag team matches. That 3-way match and also that the woman match on the pre-show.
I was disappointed in the Bucks versus the Brotherhood.
I thought it.
You and I said last week on the show that it should be one of the best matches of the year, and it just did not live up to that.
And I think that's what drug it down for me too, is that I was expecting so much better. Cody has been on such a roll in the couple of matches we've seen. The way that he performed with Darby Allin, the match he had against his brother, were 2 just amazing matches that are definitely in match of the year, talk. And then he came out here and I still felt like he did good. I loved the Young Bucks playing the heels. That was something I really enjoyed. But I can't give this match higher than a 4.
Yeah,
I just couldn't.
And I don't know how you felt, but I felt watching it that it dragged.
31 minutes was too.
I was tired. It might have been just because the show was running long already. but I was watching that going, is this match ever going to end? And I don't want to
30,
feel that way in any match, especially a match that the Young Bucks are involved in. So
31 minutes was a little long for it.
this is one of the few times I've ever felt that way. Um, hang on a second, my microphone got pulled out.
Is that what that
All
was?
right, so
Is that what that was? Your microphone? Wait till you hear that on the replay.
what I was saying, I'm not sure how much you heard, but I felt like the match went too long, and
For this match, it seemed to kind of drag.
yeah, exactly. It dragged, and I never want to feel that way about a Young Bucks match that that I wanted to end, and I just could not wait for that match to end.
I still felt like they were incredible as the heels, though. It's something out of the Bucks we haven't seen in a while, and they are really good heels. I thought they played very well against the Brotherhood, and I actually liked their post-match comments. The only thing that bugged me is the fact that they ran out of time and couldn't address the challenge by the Lucha Brothers.
Yeah, and
But
and honestly, I feel like a couple of things were working against this match for me. One of them was that the show was already running long,
right.
and secondly was that I was already tired going into it. So, yeah, I mean, my overall impression of the match was that coming in, I had heard somebody say that this was just a glorified house show, and I felt like they can't afford for this to be a glorified house show, and the rest of the card didn't feel that way, but the main event did. It felt like a house show main event when I was watching it. So I really want to go back and watch this match in isolation when I'm not super exhausted, when I haven't already watched 3.5 hours of pro wrestling. I don't normally feel that way about matches, that I want to go back and watch it by itself, but I think this one, I really need to give it a chance in isolation.
One thing that we haven't talked about yet, and I don't know how you felt, but that 6-man tag match, I felt like Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin stole the show.
Really? Why did you? Okay, that's interesting to me. Why did you think Darby Allin stole the show?
He had such great character development in his little whatever he was doing with Jimmy Havoc that he was hard not to watch. Granted, I get it. He was the perfect guy to eat the pin, and Shawn Spears was the perfect guy to get the pin. But I felt like he had this aura around him. And again, when he was in the ring, he sold like a 20-year veteran. He sold like he's Dolph Ziggler. Everything that happened to him looked like he just got shot in the face. He made everything look great. I loved his interaction with Jimmy Havoc. That's a feud that, as much as Jimmy Havoc bugs me, now I've seen 2 straight matches without him being a hardcore guy. I can kind of buy into him a little bit more, and I think him versus Allen is going to be a great feud going forward. And Sammy Guevara just was fantastic as always. He's a guy that really needs to get a spotlight on the show because he's just fantastic. Everything he does, his presence, the moveset he has, he's just great. Just absolutely great.
Guevara, totally agreed with. Jimmy Havoc, to me, is really showing me something that I never saw from him before in the other organizations we've seen him in. And I'm really enjoying what he's bringing to the table so far, which I'm fucking shocked to say.
Right, exactly. I was the same way 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. But after his match at Fyter Fest and now his match here, I'm starting to enjoy the fact that he can actually wrestle and not just do a hardcore match.
Exactly.
And Darby Allin, I might have been reaching with Darby Allin, but I really liked the interaction and the tension between Havoc and Allin, and I really liked the fact that Allin sold like he was Dolph Ziggler. Everything he did just seemed like it was painful.
Here was my take on the Darby Allin performance. Against Cody, we saw such a smart performance by him, in character. I'm not talking about his actual performance, although that was brilliant as well. And the performance was brilliant on this show by him as far as a performer. My problem was that I felt like the way that we saw him wrestle against Cody and how brilliant he was in that match was superseded in this one by the way that he was so eager to get in there, by the way that he was so dumb to cost his team the match when it looked like they had it won, and it seemed like he was kind of in it for himself, which is not what we kind of saw, in my opinion, at Fyter Fest. So I felt like his performance in the match kind of negated a lot that we saw from his character at Fyter Fest.
See, and to me, it looked like more of the tension building between Alan and Havoc than him being out for himself. It looked like he just wanted, in my eyes when I was watching, it looked like he just wanted to one-up Jimmy Havoc.
Because Havoc didn't tag him earlier?
Yeah, and it was a lot of, I agree, it was arrogance. It was a rookie move, but it played well for the story that I thought that Alan and Havoc were going for the entire. They are clearly setting up a program between the two. The way that they had tension from the start, the way that Alan reacted when Havoc refused to take him in the beginning of the match and went back to Joey Janela, and then the ending, I thought, kind of put a perfect bow on the entire story that was going on between Alan and Havoc throughout the match. And a lot of people will look at what happened between MJF and Shawn Spears. And by the way, MJF doing the perfect 10 to Shawn Spears was fucking hilarious. That was one of my favorite moments of the match. But I felt like...
Did you see the unfortunate news about MJF?
No, what happened?
He tore something in his knee.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
I wish I was kidding you.
Damn it. Alright, that makes me sad. Must have happened in last night's match.
No.
Or tonight's match.
No, it happened at Fight for the Fallen.
Really?
Yeah, tonight's match was taped.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, they do a month at a time, so.
Yeah.
Well, that sucks, because he's been on fire. But he's the kind of guy, a lot like, I bring up the name, but Randy Orton back in 03-04. He's the kind of guy that is so good on the mic that he doesn't, or like Austin in 98 when he broke his neck. He's the kind of guy that can still go out there, just deliver a promo and get himself over. He doesn't need to be in the ring. So I don't see him just going away for 6 months while he heals.
Well, it depends how much rehab he needs to do, though, too.
He's still a guy that can trot out there on pay-per-views and deliver a promo. Yeah. Regardless of, he is that talented as a talker. And he might be, and I've said this about Eli Drake, but I think MJF is a better talker than Eli Drake. I think MJF might be the best talker in the business right now. And maybe it's because I haven't seen Austin Aries now in a year. Or it could be the fact that draw heat like nobody else ever has.
I lost what you were saying. But are you saying that MJF has the capability to draw heat like nobody else ever has?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying.
Okay.
He's not there yet. He's not on Flair's level yet. But he's a guy that at 23 years old to be able to talk like he does is a talent that just can't go wasted.
I agree. I mean, I really hope that that the injury isn't as bad as reported, and that he's not out for an extended period. And it's a shame that it really has to miss their second ever pay-per-view.
And Shawn Spears is a guy that really didn't do much, but what he did with what he had was fantastic. He got himself over more in just a limited amount of time during this match than I think he really deserved to. But he is more despicable now than he was going into the match.
I don't know. I've despised him for years, so I'm not sure about that. I'm a bit biased to comment on that statement.
It is sad though that Joey Janela was the guy that was lost in all this. Out of the 6 guys, Joey Janela is the guy that just like, he was there.
That's okay. He made enough news for himself earlier in the week that we didn't
his fight with Enzo.
Yeah.
I will say this: I was really impressed with Alex Marquez. We talked about him on Double or Nothing and how he blew all these calls and everything. He has come a long way in just 3 shows, to the point where 3, if you count.
He wasn't on the last show.
He wasn't on Fyter Fest?
No. It was Golden
Oh, that's
Boy,
right. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so but in just 2 shows, he is a completely different guy on this than he was on Double or Nothing, and I was really impressed with him. He did miss a few moves, called a few moves the wrong thing, but so did JR. So I kind of took it with a grain of salt this time, but he was a lot better, I thought, than he was at Double or Nothing. A lot better.
I thought so too. All right, so
And
we've got about 25 minutes left of the show.
Oh, so we got to talk about your golden boy.
My golden boy.
The show that you made me watch that, again, I'm disappointed in.
Okay, so let's talk about Slammiversary and why you're disappointed in it.
Well, first of all, no match went longer than 15 minutes again. And I'm not saying that Fight for the Fallen was a lot better, but at least they had 5 matches go over 15 minutes on Fight for the Fallen. Slammiversary, the longest.
Do you think any matches at WrestleMania 3 went over 15 minutes, Jeff?
Yeah.
They didn't.
Are you kidding?
No.
There's
not even Savage versus Steamboat went over 15 minutes.
There's no way Savage versus Steamboat didn't go over 15 minutes.
I'm pretty sure like 13:42 or something like that.
You got to be kidding me.
I'm going to look it up right now. Anyway, keep talking.
I am too. I'm looking it up. I can't talk. I'm too busy Googling. If you're right, I don't know what I'm going to do. There's no time. Oh, here we go. Okay. Wait, what? I didn't say 35. I said 3. Son of a bitch. Google is not my friend today.
All right, so I thought I'll talk since Jeff's not
decided
to stop talking. I feel like
God, you son of a bitch, you're right. 14:35 was Steamboat versus Savage.
I feel like Slammiversary was really 2
God.
I feel like the first 4 matches were all kind of blah. And then the rest of the show was just completely awesome. I loved the X Division match. I loved the women's Monster Ball. I loved the world title match, and my second favorite match of the year at this point, at least story-driven match, is Sami Callihan versus Tessa Blanchard. That match I absolutely loved.
All right, now I'm going to tell you where you're wrong.
Okay, go ahead.
I felt like this was a match that the order was fine. I didn't mind the order because I think it fit well with a building of a match. I just felt like there was too much ECW influence. The first 5 matches were I not necessarily no disqualification, but kind of anything goes type matches where you had a fatal 4-way, which is, no count outs, none of that shit. Then you had, which confused me because I didn't realize that the 3-way tag match was going to be a Hurricane Rules where everybody was just allowed to be in the ring at all time. And I think that really kind of turned me off because we had just seen a match where everything goes and then we roll into another match where anything goes, and then we roll into another match that's hardcore first blood, and then we roll into another match that is kind of it's considered a hardcore, even though it wasn't billed as such. It was billed as a singles match, but the chair comes in and they comment on how this, oh yeah, that's right, this is a hardcore match, and then we roll into a Monsters Ball match. We had 5 straight matches that were no DQ, just kind of anything goes type matches. And I think that kind of drug it down a little bit, where by the time I got to the Monster Ball match, as much fun as that match was, I was worn out of seeing people hit with chairs.
Was anybody hit with chairs in the 3-way tag match? I don't think anybody was.
They weren't, but it was the fact that it was a Hurricane Rules match right after we got out of that 4-way match is what kind of drug it down for me. I mean, Jake Christ was just amazing in that 4-way match.
Well, the 4-way match should not have existed.
And see, I think Moose versus Rob Van Dam shouldn't have existed. Well, and I would have rather seen
booked. That match at least had a storyline behind it. They just decided to pull out this 4-way match out of their ass when the show went on the air.
And I think if the 3-way tag match between North LAX and Rascals would have been held under 3-way match tag team rules and not Hurricane rules, I think I would have had a different feeling on the entire card, because I needed a break. I needed a break between what we saw in that opening match and then just the brutality of the Eddie Edwards Killer Cross match. I needed a break. And what we got was more of the same that we saw in the first match. And then it kind of, though it was different stipulations and there was, a different vibe with only 2 guys, there was still a lot of violence and a lot of just chaos. And then Moose versus Rob Van Dam was fine as a singles match. And I'm really starting to appreciate Moose and how far he's come as a wrestler. But then when the chair got involved, it again led to chaos. And then we had the chaos in the Monsters Ball match. So we had 5 matches in a row that was nothing but chaos. And then we get to Rich Swann versus Impact, which was fine for what it was. But to me, it was no better than any cruiserweight match I saw in WCW in 1998. There was an awful lot of stalling by the Johnnies, which I think took away from it. I mean, and I said this last time, and I get why Johnny, what are they calling him?
Johnny Bravo?
Yeah, Johnny Bravo. I get why he's there, because he's the guy to bring heat to 2 fan favorites. But at the same time, Johnny Impact is the kind of guy who could have went in against Rich Swann and put on a ridiculously athletic match and been a 5-star match. And instead he put on a 2-star dud because we had Johnny Bravo interfering too much and doing too much stalling and taking the match out of what it should have been. Brian Cage versus Elgin.
Wait. You're going too fast.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So I don't agree with what Josh Matthews said about the
5-star match.
About the Johnny Impact versus Rich Swann match, which was, if you didn't like that match, you're just a hater. That was awesome. I mean, I did think it was a great match, though. I just didn't think it was a match of the year contender like Matthews seemed to think.
Oh, and Don Callis called it a 7-star match.
Yeah, that was just complete overkill.
I think it was a 3-star match at best. If you look at the character development of Johnny Bravo. But the problem is that you've got Rich Swann and Johnny Impact, 2 of the most athletic stars in wrestling history, up against each other, and they had too much stalling. There was too much ground and pound. There was too much laying on the mat. There was too much Johnny Bravo getting involved. I want to see...
what's funny
I want to
about
see these two go out and actually put on that kind of match that we can expect out of them. That's what I'm saying.
What's funny that you say that is that this was the first time that I really looked at Rich Swann and said, "Wow, that guy's pretty great." I mean, usually, like usually I'm not a fan of Rich Swann, and I thought he was outstanding in this match.
Because they slowed him down.
Yeah,
I think it might have been because they slowed him down a little bit.
Exactly. You said they were stalling, but I think the slow down nature of the match worked for the benefit of Rich Swann.
But not for Johnny Impact.
Maybe.
I think Johnny Impact did a great job of getting his heel character over. I think him slowing things down was good for that. I think certain spots like getting his abs polished and Don Callis really putting him over as being better than everybody else. And Josh Matthews had that line that you loved, which, by the way, Josh Matthews is fucking terrible.
He is, but he also said, for those of you who didn't see it, he said, I really liked when Johnny Impact was on Survivor. And Callis said, "Oh yeah?" And Matthews said, "Yeah, because then he was on an island far, far away from us."
He gets his lines in occasionally, but he spends... I don't know how to say this about Josh Matthews other than just he sucks. Mm-hmm. But I guess he tries too hard to be Jim Ross. He does a lot of, like during the Rob Van Dam match, he did the Van Daminator, Van Daminator, Van Daminator, the 3 calls like Jim Ross used to do. But he also miscalls a lot of moves. He seems like he doesn't really know the flow of the matches because he gets excited during moments when he shouldn't, and he really drags on the moments where he should be getting up tempo. And he seems to, I don't know how to word it, but there were a couple of times during the night here when he would get ridiculously excited talking about how that was the greatest thing he's ever seen. And then 2 minutes later, the other guy would do the same move, and he would talk about how that's the greatest he's ever seen. I
guess I missed him doing that, but I will say he is terrible.
He seems to sell a lot of things similarly, and I can't think of the exact moments, but there was and it hit me, and honest to God, I can't remember which match it was. I was binge watching wrestling yesterday, so I can't remember, but I do remember it stuck out where he was talking about a move, and I want to say it was a move Johnny Impact did, where he talked about how that was the greatest move he'd ever seen. And earlier in the night, Rob Van Dam did the exact same move, and he said the exact same thing.
Well, I guess he didn't change his opinion.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, at the same time, it was one of those things where he's just not good. He's just not good. I hope when Impact gets their new TV deal and they do their remake that Josh Matthews is relegated back to the back and they bring Matt Stryker up front. I really hope that.
You forgot about the part where he was talking about how the X Games are coming up and how great Rich Swann would be at the X Games on a snowboard. And then he did like a springboard senton,
yep.
And then he goes, "He's so great, he doesn't even need a snowboard." It's like,
right.
Motherfucker, you're the one that was brought the snowboard over in the first place.
And then he was his talk about Johnny Impact being the quarterback of the Cowboys. It was just, if his shit is scripted, they need to fire whoever's scripting it. He's just. I'm sorry. I like Josh Matthews. There's a part of me in my heart that really reaches out for the guy because I remember watching him on the first season of Tough Enough back in 2000, the one that Maven ended up winning, and where we got Chris. The hell was that guy's name? The guy from Harvard.
Nowitzki.
The one. Yeah. and we had all that talent come out of there. But at the same time, so, I kind of feel I have a little heartfelt for him because of that, and because watching him rise the ranks in WWE, becoming a backstage guy and making his way to the booth, but he is just not good. Not good at all.
Well, he never has been, at being a commentator.
No, but at least you saw growth in him in WWE. Once he went to Impact, and it seems like his ego got the best of him, he's just not good at all, and he's not getting better.
Well, a couple of things about him. Number one is, I hate that he's always hyping things. He's always like, I cannot wait for this. Instead of paying attention to the show he's actually commentating on. He's also always asking whoever his commentating partner is questions like, why would he be doing this, and things like that. And it doesn't come across as being interested. It comes across as him not we don't think of anything else to say.
Well, he did that during the lead of the Monster Ball match, where he said, "Hey, I got to ask you this question. If this was a standard 4-way match, who would win?" Okay, that leads me to my next question, and I kind of got that where you were coming from there too. It's like it almost feels like Don Callis is just in pain listening to him.
Well, it was great how after he asked that, Josh is like, "Well, why do you feel that way?" And Callis said, I'm just hedging my bets, Josh."
That was funny. I do miss, the one thing I do miss is Callis and Kevin Kelly. Those two had an amazing chemistry together, and I want to see Don Callis get back for a Suzuki match.
Yeah, you talked about how your heart goes out to Josh Matthews and all that kind of stuff. Let me just say that he's married to Madison Rayne, so I really have a hard time feeling sorry for him if he happens to lose his job or. That's
right. He is married to Madison Rayne. Fuck that guy. He's got his world made.
There you go. Exactly my point.
And to get on with it here, and that was my take, and you can comment on those matches too if you want. That was just my take. I felt like it was just too much. There was too much of similar matches to start off the show. But by the time we got to Brian Cage,
the way that I felt was, first of all, like I've said several times now, I felt like the opening match should not have been there at all. And
I think it needed to be.
I think if you open the show with the X Division title match and then the tag title match, then I think you're off and running, and you have a much better show than starting off with that fatal 4-way that was just done to get people on the card. And I no build behind it whatsoever.
I kind of agree with that. I think that in fact, the X Division match would have been a great way to start it. It was a very athletic match that was fun to watch. It just, for me, it drug a little bit. And then I think going to a standard 3-way tag match, not Hurricane rules, but a standard 3-way tag match would have been better. And then you roll into Eddie Edwards and Killer Cross, which I felt was a great match. I just felt like it was ill-timed because it was following not the same matches, but similar matches. And Eddie Edwards, you and I have talked about this before. He is really getting into his crazy man persona. And he's selling it like nothing I've ever seen before. Killer Cross is really coming into his own and becoming a beast. So, I mean, that match was good. I liked...
It was good, but again, if you don't have the Fatal 4-Way match on there, it could have been better because it would have had a little bit more time to build.
And see, yeah, and that was one drawback, is that it was only 11 minutes long. I think it could have benefited by 2 or 3 more minutes. My only reason for wanting the 4-way match on is I thought, and you hate the guy, but I kind of like him, TJP. I felt like he was great in that match. And Jake Christ, every time I see Jake Christ, I think more and more this guy is a future superstar. He's a future heavyweight champion of a promotion. He's got all the tools. He's athletic. He seems to be intelligent in the ring. he seems to be the guy that is going to be in the next 5 years a heavyweight champion and a guy that's the face of the promotion.
Well, you can't just say that I hate TJP without understanding why I hate TJP. It has nothing to do with him. It has to do with the fact that he comes in, and for some reason, this guy is constantly pushed in front of guys that he should not be pushed in front of.
Fair enough. I will agree with that.
And you know what? His very first match coming back, he beats the undefeated Ace Austin, which is ridiculous. And guess who was on the card here when Ace Austin wasn't? TJP.
Exactly. That I will agree with, is that he does seem to get those pushes. He's talented, but he doesn't have that differentiating personality. He's the kind of guy that you could give him any gimmick and he would fit in with it and put on good matches, but there's nothing that differentiates him away from anybody else.
No, you know what I liked TJP? When he was manic. Because he did have something,
that's a good point.
He did have something differentiating him from everybody else.
That's a good point. Ever since he went back to the TJP thing and his video game entrance and all that shit, he's interchangeable. He is very athletic and very talented. I'm going to give him that. He can put on great matches. I've seen it a dozen times, but he has no personality. No,
and we talked about on the show that we did a few weeks ago, kind of our makeup show when we had technical issues that night, is that Impact needs bodies, and that's why they have all these ECW originals. And so I'm not mad that they signed him at all. I just don't like the fact that he seems to be getting the push that should be going to a younger wrestler like Ace Austin.
Yeah, exactly. Ace Austin is the guy that should have been in his spot, and he seemed to be being groomed for it, especially after his Impact win when he declared himself a heavyweight, which I thought was fantastic. But again, I can't take enough away from Jake Christ. He is so talented.
Well, he's incredibly talented, and that brings up another point I wanted to make on this show, which is, did you hear the chants for him?
Oh yeah.
In that match, I realized that they just put a heater with OVE in order to get, and I think probably part of it was simply to keep them heel for now. But how much longer can they really keep OVE heel?
When you consider Sami Callihan as one of the most popular guys in the promotion, and Jake Christ is as talented as he is, I could see Dave Christ and this new guy that they've got, Madman Fulton. Mm-hmm. I can see them being heels, but I just don't think Jake Christ and Sami Callihan can stay heels much longer. They go out there and they perform like heels and they get the heat that they want, but there's also that kind of underwhelming swell cheering for them too. And I noticed it a lot during the 4-way match where it seemed like people, even though Jake Christ really got them to turn on him, it did seem like there were moments that people were behind him.
Yeah, the OBE sucks chant started because people were chanting OBE.
Yep, and he jumped in and changed it to the sucks.
Yep.
He was the one, and you could hear him audibly on the mic screaming OVE sucks just to get them to chant that.
Yeah. So I think Jake Christ is awesome. I think I agree with you that he's a future star. I'm just not sure where they're going to go with that particular stable, because they may want to keep them heel when I don't think it's going to be possible for much longer.
Well, it's like half of them are heel and then half of them are kind of, Sami Callihan is still despicable and disgusting, but we saw in MLW how he can be a tweener and how he can get that face pop, and without changing his character. And I think he's starting to get that a little bit in Impact as well.
He is. And the way that the match against Tessa ended, definitely with him showing respect to her and handing her bat back.
Yep.
I mean, he still yelled, at the end of it, "Rah!" in triumph, and he still cheated to beat her. But really, that was not a heel way for him to walk out of a pay-per-view.
No, it wasn't. And that match, as much as I hated seeing Tessa Blanchard get beat down, that match went exactly the way I thought it should. It didn't involve a whole lot of hardcore elements like I initially thought it was going to. I think they told a really good story. I think Tessa got in some great moments. And I think that at the end with Sami Callihan showing her respect was a huge, huge move. I think this is easily one of my top 5 matches of the year.
Yeah.
Easily.
I totally agree with that. Bully Ray said on Busted Open that if it was him booking it, he still would have booked Sami to win, but he would have booked Sami to win by cheating at the end. I completely disagree with that.
I disagree too.
I think the ending of it with Tessa stealing his victory away from him was the perfect way to go. And in case you don't know what I mean by that, I mean that she stood there knowing she was about to lose, and instead of letting Sami do the thumbs up, thumbs down, she did it herself.
Yep.
She went thumbs up, thumbs down, knowing she was going to get punked, knowing she was going to get beat, but stealing Sami's gloating away from him.
Yep.
And I thought that was perfect.
I did too. That was one thing that really stood out in the match, and it was one thing that I was really worried about throughout the entirety of the match, was that Tessa was going to pull out the win, or Sami was going to need to cheat to win. It's not saying anything about intergender matches. They are what they are. I think Tessa can go with anyone on the planet. We saw it in Lucha Underground with Sexy Star winning the Lucha Championship. I'm all for it. But I think that Sami was the perfect guy to pull off this match, because he was the guy who could punch a woman and have it be believable. Eli Drake was not that guy. And I know they originally wanted it to be Eli Drake and Tessa, but he was not that guy who could do it. Sami Callihan, being as despicable of a guy as he is, could easily pull off that sell. And Tessa being beat down the way that she was, and having Sami kind of stand over the top of her and make himself out to be the king badass, was perfectly done. And Tessa got in her offense. She got her comebacks, and like you said, stole his thunder at the end. I just don't know that a story could have been written better than what those two told.
I agree with that. And here's something that they did in the match that I would not have anticipated happening. Sami Callihan is I think both of ours, or if he's not our favorite, he's right there in our top favorite male wrestlers on the planet. Mm-hmm. Tessa Blanchard is my second favorite women's wrestler on the planet.
She's my favorite.
Yeah, and she might be. I'm not saying that she's not the best, but I still like Shayna. I'm still huge on Shayna Baszler.
See, and I still like Kelly Klein better than Shayna Baszler.
That's cool.
I'm just saying. Just saying. No, we're not, fucker. We have to have the same opinion all the time because that makes for a good show. Remember?
No, opposite.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, but my point was that Sami is my favorite performer on the planet, period. And Tessa's my second favorite women's wrestler on the planet. But when Sami did that Samoa Joe thing where he was slamming Tessa into the barricades on the outside, I was like, "You motherfucker!"
Yep.
And so they got me to turn against Sami for even if it was a brief moment. They got me to turn against Sami, and that is just brilliant storytelling. He's
that kind of guy that is a lot like Kevin Owens, where on a dime, he can make himself the most hated man on the planet.
Yep.
And that's a rare thing to do. And Kevin Owens has done it a couple of times throughout his WWE career. If you want to see him actually do it well, go back to Ring of Honor, because he was amazing at Ring of Honor at doing that, is he can come in and people can be cheering him, and within seconds, he can turn that crowd to hate him and boo him. And Sami Callihan is probably the only other guy I've seen in the last 20 years that can do that as well.
Yeah.
And you've got to admit, he is getting cheered more than he's getting booed. And that's another reason why I can see him and the mini draw, or what is he now, the medium draw, break out and be faces while the other two can stay heels.
Now, are you talking about them splitting up, or are you talking about more like a Luger-Sting dynamic thing?
Kind of a Luger-Sting dynamic.
Yeah, I think that'd be pretty awesome.
I think those two together, because it's kind of that feeling of anytime Sami can turn on Jake. Jake is a future. He's a face. He's a guy that just with a tweak to his wardrobe can easily become a top face. Easily. He is loved by audiences. And like you said, we saw him where he had to turn the audience against him to make himself the heel in the match again. Because Trey Miguel, Willie Mack, and TJP, those are the faces. Jake Crist was thrown in there to be that heel environment. And people were cheering Jake ahead of those other guys. And he turned them.
Yeah, he's recently started using that thing that he does in the corner where uses like the blade like an elbow.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think he probably added that in order to get more boos, because the rest of his offense, just like Rob Van Dam's or AJ Styles,
is lovable.
Pure face.
It's one of those. He's one of those type of guys that has the offense that no matter what he's doing, you've got to respect what he's doing. He just like you said, AJ Styles. Every time AJ Styles was a heel, people still cheered him because he had that great offense,
right, that
everyone could get behind. And I can't remember the other guy you said. Now just escaped my mind. But
I don't remember who I said either.
But Rob Van Dam too is another guy who even in ECW, and I'm going back and part of my Monday Night Wars is including ECW into it, and I'm watching ECW, and he is a despicable heel during that. But you watch his movement in the ring, and people are cheering for him because he's so good at what he does that he can get those pops.
He was a cocky asshole, but he was so dynamic.
Yep.
You couldn't help but at least respect him.
Exactly, and that's kind of the way Jake Crist is. And I mean, there were moments during that four-way, like when was it TJP that had Trey Miguel in that submission move?
Oh yeah, he had him in the Romero special.
Yep, and Jake Crist kind of crawled between them and and got the pin, or tried to get the pin until Willie Mack broke it up.
Yep.
I mean, that was just a spectacular move, something that I've never seen before, and it was really, really well done.
Absolutely.
I do want to say one thing before we go too, because I know we're getting.
I was going to say I interrupted you when you started to give your opinion on the world title match too. So.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to talk about. I love the match. I thought the match was great. I thought these two bulls put on a fantastic story. My problem with it, and the only reason I didn't like this match, was the ending. I felt like Brian Cage rolling up Michael Elgin for a win like that was bad booking.
I did too, and I really felt like the story called for Michael Elgin to win the championship. At the very least, Brian Cage winning it with a badass power move. Well, I didn't think that would fit because of the way his back had been destroyed. He already tried for the drill claw. He wasn't able to pull it off. And so, to me, this match called for Cage to lose the championship and for Elgin to leave with. And so I was kind of in the same boat as you. I thought it was a great match with a bad ending until what happened after the match.
with Rhino coming out. Or wait, no, technically that wasn't Rhino because he's still under contract for another day.
Because I was thinking, well, this is really stupid. Now Elgin is going to go to the back of the line. He's going to have nothing to do, because I don't think they're going to build this up again for Bound for Glory. So this was a really bad decision. And then Rhino comes in out of nowhere. And by the way, I realize that we kind of think that he is, but they made Josh Matthews look like the stupidest fucking person on the planet by him having to say some masked guy when before he even hit the goddamn gore, I knew that was Rhino.
You could tell by the way he was moving around.
Exactly.
And his ponytail and everything. There was everything that said Rhino.
But my
the way
point is
the way that he set up the spear and everything was Rhino.
My point though is that I felt like now Elgin has something to do that makes sense that would keep him away from going for the championship because now he's got a kind of a blood feud thing because somebody attacked him, and it's going to make sense that he's going to back off and that cage will now have another challenger.
And it makes for a great story too, that is easily told because this is now the second time that Elgin has attacked Don Callis.
Yep, that he's laid hands on the boss. Yep.
And Don Callis, not only the boss, but Don Callis is an ECW original. So to bring in a guy like Rhino plays perfectly into that ECW storyline.
Why are you pissing while you're talking?
I wasn't pissing. That was water. I'm getting a drink. Son of a bitch. Anyway, it plays perfectly into the ECW storyline that they're going with.
Yeah, it does.
I personally think Rhino
was under contract where to WWE?
Yeah, he's still under contract until the 17th, so on Wednesday.
So I wonder if he got permission to do that, or if they're gonna be some kind of legal ramifications.
From what I heard is that WWE doesn't care. He asked for his release like 3 months ago. It's only 2 days, or 3 days until his contract's up, and they just are like whatever.
Okay.
So.
Well, speaking of
because it wasn't his face that was on TV. That's why they're saying whatever. He was masked, and only the smarks supposedly know that was Rhino.
So I guess it's kind of like when Ric Flair's contract was over with the WWE. He couldn't wrestle, but he was still able to do like Flair for the Gold.
Right, exactly. But the difference there was that he was out as Flair. This guy was a masked guy, and he's not technically going to show up on Impact TV until after his contract expires.
Yeah, that's fair. At least, I'm surprised the WWE is being that magnanimous, considering they won't even fucking Cody Rhodes call himself fucking Cody Rhodes.
Right, exactly. But Brandy Rhodes can be Brandy Rhodes.
Well, she owns a trademark, just like Dustin owns a trademark of Dustin Rhodes.
Which makes no sense to me. I don't understand how Cody doesn't own the trademark, but everyone else does.
Because he wasn't smart enough to trademark it before he started wrestling for them.
Stupid ass.
I actually think that he has a case if he really wanted to fight it. I think he actually would win because he actually used the Cody Rhodes name before he wrestled for WWE. So he could say, I actually have first use of this, and I never signed those rights over to WWE because the rumor is that he never did. But is it really worth the fight, I guess is the question.
Not really. The one thing I will say about Cody is he needs to stop taking pot shots at the WWE. I love what AEW is doing, but be your own entity. Stop taking the pot shots because there's no reason for it at all.
I feel like he was perfectly justified to say what he said at Fight for the Fall.
That I felt like he was, but it seems like every pay-per-view every show he's taking those pot shots. I don't know. I think that he's bigger than that. I think that he's proven that he is the star that we all thought he should have been in WWE. I just don't think he needs to resort to those things. But you're right. I mean, you can't. The Evolve show going up against a show like this was wrong in a way, but at the same time didn't affect the outcome of the sales because they didn't charge anything. It wasn't like they were charging for charity for the show. The show was free.
As far as watching on paper, as far as watching on TV, yeah.
Right, and it was kind of cool. Like Benny threw in $10,000 too.
I agree. I started to say earlier, speaking of contracts, so there's two major players that were in championship matches at Impact whose contracts are now up. So, if you had to choose, Jeff, would you re-sign Johnny Impact or LAX?
LAX.
LAX, because they're younger, they're more dynamic, and you can do more with them.
Well, yeah, and they've got a future outside of the tag team. I mean, Johnny Impact is amazing, but where can Johnny go outside of Impact? LAX people would scoop them up, especially AEW, that is looking for a tag team division that's second to none. LAX would fit in perfectly there. Or they go to MLW and respark a actual tag team division that's kind of dead at the moment. But where's Johnny going to go?
The NWA, MLW, who knows? But yeah, I mean, the bottom line is that you have way more upside with LAX than you do with Johnny Impact.
Yeah, you do.
And LAX were on Busted Open not too long ago saying that how they feel like they have a home with Impact and things like that. So I don't think they're going to not re-sign. I think it's just kind of negotiations have to go through. Plus, Santana needs to rest up after having a slight tear of his MCL a couple of weeks ago.
Is that what happened to him during Slammiversary?
No, what happened to it? Actually happened at Code Red.
Okay.
But I think they had it booked that way for Slammiversary so that they had an excuse for them to be off television for a few weeks while they were doing the negotiations and while he's resting, because he was advised by the doctor to rest as much as possible so that he could avoid surgery. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
Another
thing that I, before we move on, because it's getting the end of the night, but Trey Miguel is still my favorite Rascal, but I see what you're saying with Zachary Wentz.
Fair enough. Zachary is my favorite Rascal, but I like I said already said before, I see what you like in Trey. I think he's more ready right now.
I wish they'd.
And I'm glad he's getting the single opportunities that he is, and I think that he's going to be an X Division champion before long.
I wish they'd get away with his whole drunk persona that they've been running on Impact TV recently.
I guess I haven't noticed that. I thought he was just kind of having fun.
Well, yeah, but they kind of keep hinting in one of the promos they had before their LAX match. Xavier and Wentz hinted to the fact that he's drunk all the time, and they're just thankful he's not actually in the match.
Ah, okay. So you think they might actually be splitting up the Rascals?
I don't know. They seem to still be together, but it just seemed like there was an insinuation there that I hope they kind of drop like they did with the Tom Lawler thing after he won his belt.
Fair enough. I have not seen the most recent Impact, so I'm not sure what they're doing yet. I did hear, though, that they're doing that Fallout Tag Team Tournament thing. And
nice.
Guess who Tessa Blanchard's tag team partner is?
Who?
Sammy?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that might start his tweener turn. I think he proved in MLW that he has what it takes to be that kind of tweener guy. That's almost the anti-hero. It's gonna take a lot to overcome it in Impact, but I still think he's the kind of guy that can be that anti-hero that people are going to cheer for.
Yeah, I think so too. What I was gonna say though is coming up this week. Of course there's more of the G1 Climax coming up, and I'm assuming that we'll probably both watch the Evolve show this coming week, and we can talk a little bit about that next week's show. Anything else we're going to cover next week's show, Chuck?
Next week, I don't know, but this week, on Thursday, we're going to have a new Wrecked with Wrestlers on our Patreon site, this time covering Rob Van Dam, and we've also got a couple things planned for our non-wrestling podcast, which is what Batman Begins, and we're going to review
an album by a brand new band called Dirty Honey. It's available on Spotify and Amazon Music right now.
And if you haven't heard Dirty Honey, feel free to look up any 80s band. But that's coming up this week.
They definitely do have an 80s sound to them.
When I was listening to them, there was one band I kept going back to from my youth, and I will reveal that on Thursday on our Patreon show, exclusive to Patreon listeners. Speaking of Patreon,
I'll wet their website a little bit more than that. I'll say that my first thought was it sounds like a cross between Sebastian Bach and Axl Rose.
Nope, there is a band that they sound exactly like. Exactly like. So, and I'll reveal that this coming Thursday on our Patreon, exclusive Patreon shows. Speaking of Patreon, www.patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor, something that we put together for listeners. And it's very inexpensive, and I think our highest tier is $10, and for that $10 you get our exclusive series, which is Wrecked with Wrestlers, and some other things coming soon. We're looking at redoing the ECW pay-per-views, reviewing those, and eventually maybe getting to the TNA Asylum pay-per-views when they used to have their $10 pay-per-views back in the early 2000s. So there's a lot of good stuff coming on that. That's our $10 tier. Our $7.50 tier is all of our non-wrestling related shows, which covers everything from comic books to movies and music and whatever you can think of in between. And then our $5 tier, which is, it's $5 a month. It helps us continue to put on programming. It gives us what we need to produce the show, to produce our Patreon show, and also to subscribe to all of the wrestling that we like to talk about. So check that out. Go to www.patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. Sign up, $5 a month. I think everybody can afford that. We've also got our YouTube channel, and that's it's kind of hit and miss with the YouTube channel. The show gets uploaded weekly, but we also jump on from time to time depending on when we have something to talk about. Last time I did was over the Twitter feud, and I've had a few things come up, but I just haven't had enough to really go for any length of time, so I haven't jumped on. And Shane got on there and reviewed, Bash at the Brewery that you reviewed on there?
Yep, that's the only one I've done so far is Bash at the Brewery.
So we jump on from time to time, throw on a new video on there, so follow us there as well. It's youtube.com/Kingdom of Honor. With links to all of our social media sites on there. Also follow us on Twitter. I'm at Regi Co-op. He's at ZanmanLOP. And use hashtag Kingdom of Honor. That's probably the best way to get to us. Keep in mind, we are trying to put together the 100 greatest champions of all promotions of all time. So give us your thoughts on that. And, of course, Facebook is still out there and gets updated as often as I can think about it. That's facebook.com/Kingdom of Honor, or you can just put in the search Kingdom of Honor, and it comes up first search result. It's a skull wearing a crown in front of a ring. And what else? If you care to send us anything long form, more than you can do in the 240 characters on Twitter, check out our send something to our email address, kingdomofhonor123@gmail.com. I think that's all of it.
And that's a lot. So.
It's a lot.
I was just looking. There is actually an ROH show coming up this coming weekend. I don't think we're going to watch it this coming weekend, but it's got Eli Isom is challenging Shane Taylor my namesake for the television championship. You have Roosh versus Dalton
Your
Castle.
last name isn't Taylor. He can't be your namesake unless your last name is Taylor.
My first name is Shane.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Don't be Jeff.
All right. Sorry.
You got a 6-man tag match between Lifeblood and Villain Enterprises. PJ Black taking on Silas Young. And then you have the Kingdom taking on Alex Shelley, Jay Lethal, and Jonathan Gresham.
My one question about Lifeblood is how can they continue without their leader?
Well, Juice is busy winning the G1. So.
Juice has been gone since the beginning of the year.
Yeah, pretty much. But this is Mark Haskins, Tracy Williams, and what the fuck's the other guy's name?
Which one? Bandito? Okay, and if you, the listener, or have not seen Mark Haskins, go to YouTube, look up Defiant Wrestling, and look up any of their shows. Mark Haskins is an amazing talent. He's somebody that is long overdue for the recognition that he deserves.
Is he still wrestling for Defiant?
Yeah, he actually was on their latest show.
Oh, I had no idea. I thought he was done with them.
That's what I thought too, but it seemed he showed up. He got into a couple of programs. The last time I saw him, he wrestled Rampage for the heavyweight title. And then I haven't watched it in about a month and a half, so I don't know if he's still on there. But he's put on some great matches in Defiant.
Yeah, I really like Mark Haskins. I really wanted to have a higher profile in Ring of Honor.
Mm-hmm. He deserves it. He's one of the most underrated wrestlers out there right now.
And I think that's pretty much all we got for this week, right?
Well, you got to do your LOP plugs.
That's a good point. So, but I want to make sure you're done with your plugs. So.
Oh, I'm done with my shit. I was done the moment I started. You know, people tune me out as it is anyway. So.
Okay, so I said you were done with your plugs. You said you were done with your shit. So guess where you made it sound like the plugs are at.
All right, I didn't need. That's gross, but accurate.
Make sure you tune into the rest of the LP shows this week. Tomorrow is the Global Revolution. On Wednesday is Sports Entertainment is Dead. Thursday, Imp will continue with his NJPW adventure on LOP Radio as he's trying to review every G1 show. On Friday is The Right Side of the Pond. Saturday, the All Elite guys should be back talking about Fight for the Fallen. And then we'll be back with you next week talking about probably Evolve and G1 and whatever else is happening in the wrestling world like we always do. And
speaking of Imp, that man has a great show. I've caught a couple of them now, and I give him all the credit in the world for tackling the G1. All the shows of the G1, a lot more difficult than it looks. But Imp is a guy that can definitely put a good take on it.
Last year, Jeff, I don't know if you know this, but last year he did a recap of every G1 card, not just the G1 matches, but the entire card, and
Jesus,
had it up within an hour or two of the show ending.
Does that dude sleep?
He didn't last year. He said he would. He said this year it wouldn't be possible for him to do it, but last year
I'm doing it. I'm doing it on my blog, and I'm hitting them like a week and a half behind. Right. So the fact that he's doing it an hour later and the whole shows.
Well, not this year. He did it last year. Not this year.
He's still give Imp a listen. If you listen to us, you're going to really enjoy Imp too. He's very good at what he does, and he has a great take on the wrestling industry.
He really does. And that's all we've got. We'll try to do better next time. This is Shane saying long days, pleasant nights, and Jeff saying
goodbye.